All right.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome. We are the Program and Service Standing Committee of CAB. And so what I'm going to do at this time is ask Garyana if you could do roll call to establish quorum.
Yes. Latanya Thompson,
Present.
Raina Hurley.
Present.
2 members are present. Quorum is established.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do is we're going to do an introduction. I'm going to start with myself. I am Latanya Thompson. I am the chair of program and subcommittee, and I'm from Contra Costa West Division, and I've been a member for 2 years.
My name is Renee Hurley. I am part of the Programs and Services Subcommittee, and I've been on CAB. This is my first year on CAB, and I represent West County.
Yes, good morning, Ozzie Carter, CAB Chair. I'm from East County, and this is my 4th year as a member of CAB.
Thank you. We'll now open it up for staff and county agencies to introduce themselves. But I apologize, I forgot Nicole Green. I'm sorry, Nicole.
It's okay. I'm patient. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Green. I am the chair for policy and budget, and I'm on my 4th year at CAP. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gary.
For...
Oh, sorry, Latanya. Hi, I'm Garyana Youngblood. I'm with the ORJ.
Hi, good morning. I'm Michelle Elizondo. I'm too with the ORJ. Good to be here.
Perfect. So moving on, are there any announcements for anyone in the room? Any announcements? Ozzie, do you have an announcement?
Well, I guess I could make the announcement here. I kind of want to do public comment, but I can make the announcement. Last night, I attended the Mixed CAB Advisory Board, where I am a member, and great news. We had a great, I guess I would say, a representation of the reentry population, with Vice Chair coming forth and requesting that consideration for funding for the reentry population, knowing that although we do have funds and excess funds, it's not enough for those populations. Since I'm a new member on Measure X CAB, I have just been kind of like sitting, watching, and listening as catching up on what's has developed over the course of the last 2 years has been a challenge. But one of the things that I did discover was that the reentry services were things that had been on the voting roster, but had not been moved forward for 2023, and those recommendations going on over to the Board of Supervisors. So with the due diligence of a team, with our Vice Chair, Nicole Green, bringing it to the attention of Measure Mixed CAB, and also with other advocates for the reentry population, and having then the opportunity as the chair for CAB to reiterate the importance, and also identifying that I am formerly incarcerated and justice impacted, and that the passion is that we definitely always know that it takes decades oftentimes for this process to be effective, because here I sit as a representative at this table, you know, and that is the beauty of recovery and reentry and services. And we definitely just want to continue to lift that up. And the good news is it's been moved to the top 10 on that list, top 10 and the top 5. So we weighed in very heavy, and we're moving on to the next level. We've leveled up.
Okay. And is there any announcement for those that are joining us via Zoom? If not, I will go over oops. I'm sorry, Nicole.
No, Nicole wasn't moving fast enough.
Okay.
So, no, I just wanted to piggyback off of Ozzy, I appreciate you acknowledging me speaking, but I wish you all could have heard her speak. It was amazing on how she uplifted the just impacted population, and how she also advocated in addition to that. So I'm very excited about that. And just again, let you guys know that we finally finished all of our work groups. So we're making our final recommendations tomorrow at Policy and Budget. So come on over if you can to catch it on Zoom to finally see what those recommendations will be that we will bring to full cap. And that's it
What time is it tomorrow, Nicole?
at 1 o'clock.
Okay,
1 to 3.
1 to 3.
1 to 3. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm gonna go over the housekeeping rules. For those in the public, please keep your participation on mute. For those on the phone, use #6 to mute and unmute. And then we'll hear comments first from the board and then from the public by raising your hand. And so what I want to do at this time, I know we did announcement. Are there any comments before we review our minutes from last meeting? Any comments for those in the room? No comments for those in the room. Are there any comments for those that are joining us via Zoom? Perfect. So what we're going to do at this time is we're going to review our minutes from our meeting on February 14th, February 15th, on page 4 through 6. If you could review that at this time. Okay, at this time, if we can have someone move to motion the minutes.
I move to motion, the minutes are.
So I move to motion the minutes from February 15th.
I move to motion the minutes from February 15th.
And if someone can second the motion? Okay, so I second the motion. Did you participate? Okay. Gariana, can we do a vote?
Yes, yes, I have a motion and I have a second. Since it's such a small subcommittee, I'm going to do a roll call vote. Latanya Thompson,
Aye.
Raina Hurley,
Aye.
2 yeses, motion carries.
Thank you. So at this time, we're going to discuss subcommittee members' role and responsibilities. We have 2 positions that are open. One would be for the vice chair and the other one would be for the secretary. Rena, I'm gonna have you say which one you're interested in.
I guess I'm interested in the vice chair. Moore says she's comfortable being the secretary.
Okay. Can you hear her okay? Okay. So she's gonna do vice chair. And then I'm not sure how we want to move forward because Rena said that whatever position was available, that she would happily accept. I'll let her know that that position is open and then we can continue at the next meeting.
Yeah, this was just a discussion item for you guys to just talk about the roles and responsibilities, and also what does it look like to be like the vice chair, and also what does it look like to be the secretary for the CAB Programs and Services Subcommittee.
So as a vice chair, basically what you would do is if I was never, well, if I wasn't here, you would take on the role as the chair. And then as the chair, I would also begin to mentor you as the vice chair. So in my absence, that you would feel comfortable with that role. The role of the secretary is she's going to be the person that actually takes the notes at our meeting. And then she would also read them out at the following meeting. And then we'll also make sure that everyone is trained on everyone's role and responsibility so that I could also step in any capacity to make sure that our meetings run smoothly. The next thing on the agenda is to discuss and revise in custody feedback approach. So at the last meeting, we talked about the feedback. We also indicated that we were going to add some things to it, but I think it may just be easier to leave it as is. I know that we discussed actually having those in custody using the tablets versus it being with the pen and pencil to see what we could do. We also wanted to look at and discuss a different approach. Last year, there was only one lady from all three that actually completed it. There was more gentlemen with that. So we were talking about how do we make it more where there's more interaction, there's more communication, and that there's actually more time for them to actually complete it on the tablet so that we get the information that we need. And Patrice is not here today. Gary-Ann, do you know when we'll be able to, because there's two things that's going with the in custody. Do you know the process that it would take to actually get them on the tablet?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not aware of that process. I think we would have to reach out maybe to Jody or the sheriff's office to see how that is distributed. But I do remember, or I do recall them saying it's a possibility for us
Okay.
having that on the tablets inside.
Okay. So I think one thing that we should probably talk about is if it's going to be a long drawn out process, that we may want to stick with the process that we used last year, just to make sure that we get the information in a timely manner, that we can review it and then make any changes that we need to make. Does anybody want to chime in about the feedback and the approach that we discussed at the meeting last month?
I know you guys also talked about going inside and doing focus groups or doing presentations or different ways to gain more feedback from different individuals who are inside so you can get more feedback from and get a broader perspective of what's going on and what are the needs. Is that still something this committee is interested in doing? Or are there different avenues that you want to elicit feedback from this population?
When we talked about that, I don't know if we took into consideration that who would handle the male population? Would they let us interact with them? Nicole has her hand up. Nicole?
So I have two things. I was going to ask, and this is a sheriff's question, can the same process that was used, was it RDA? I forgot the name of the group. Whoever's doing the CalAIM surveys, whatever process was used to distribute those surveys in custody, can you do the same process for CAP? I do not know what that process is and can't speak to that process. However, I do know that there have been that there were other surveys done, and based on the report they gave the CAB, they was able to collect a little bit more data than we were, right? So what process did they use to get their surveys out? And then in reference to your question, yes, women can see the men. I'm not sure in reference to like access based on your current clearance, but that'll be a Jody question because it may have to go through another program for you to get there. But we do, as women, we can go in and see men because I do. So it's not really a because our gender, why we can't go in there, it has to do with our access. So I would definitely pose those two questions to Jody, but I don't know what survey process they used to get their stuff.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
You're welcome.
Ozzy?
Yes, I think I can assist in answering that question. RDA actually utilized focus groups. And focus groups are actually individuals that were in custody. They had actual conversations. Focus groups asked, it's where we have a paper survey, they just answer the questions that are there. But with the focus group, you can do a deep dive and you can have conversations that lead, ask one central question, but always have an opportunity to ask deeper questions and get more information. And you don't have, because with the paper, you know, it's depending on who's filling it out and if they have a consistency. I do have one thing, I don't know if we really talked about it, but I think it was in my head. Kind of like have some type of educational format before we actually present the surveys in whatever manner we're going to present them in, to educate staff and also prepare those who are in custody for the upcoming survey and why it's important, to let them know why it's important, give them that information, that background, and letting them know this is something that's just not a one-time thing. We've done it, had a success rate, but just educating them, giving them participation prior to actually having to submit the survey. I think that gives them a little bit more autonomy and feeling that, oh, this is something valuable. This is something going to help me. This might help someone else. And I think that would be one thing of the precursor. The other thing, the survey and where it's going to be on the tablet. And that, I think that's a good option, being on the tablet, where we don't have to deal with the paper, the distribution. The other part of that being on the tablet is that it will actually help with
The data
capturing and the interpretation. We don't have to utilize, and our data team won't have to, well, what do they really mean? But it can be more easier flow.
Right, so I have down that we're gonna find out like how long is the process to get it on the tablet to access it, if they have the bandwidth, and if it's going to prolong the process to the point that we just stick with what we have and set it up correctly. I will also ask Jody, like, what is the process for it, and do they have the bandwidth for them to be able to educate those that are in custody on what the process is, or if that would be part of the focus group, and then how we would roll out the focus group, like how often could we do it, how many people could attend, to make sure that, and then like the different locations to make sure that the information is being shared at all 3 locations.
Well, I just want to ask one question,
Mhm.
and that's the time frame for this to happen, because we have to keep in mind time frames of how long it takes to roll out, asking
Right.
questions, interacting, and our committee to determine exactly what it's going to look like on our rollout schedule, to have a soft date, landing date, and a hard landing date, so that we make sure that we get it out in a timely fashion.
Right, so we are gonna roll it out, but again, we don't know the process to have it on the tablet,
Okay,
right?
right.
So if I don't know that, then we may not be using the tablet, we may be going with what we have. And if we're going with what we have, then we can find out when we can go in to do the focus group. So there's a lot of questions we're gonna actually have to have a conversation with Jody, like how soon can we come in for the focus group? Is the staff willing to educate? And we're looking at 3 locations. Once we have that information, we can have real timelines on how we're going to roll it out and what it's going to look like. But we don't even know if we're going to be able to use the tablet at this time, depending on what that process looks like.
And also establishing the focus groups. And because one of the things we have to remember, the people that are in custody and their availability, and whether or not that revolving door is going to affect us having one-on-one contact with them to establish a focus group, because the focus group is more than 2 people. And that's the other weighted part.
Right, but that was also what I mentioned with Jody. We would ask that information as well on how often we can go in there, how many people be in the focus group, and then looking at not just one location, but all 3 locations.
Don't get the time frame.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Nicole?
Basically, we need to meet with Jody.
Yeah, because Jody has a lot of information that we're going to need to know in order to say if we're using the tablets this year, if we're not using the tablets, can we have focus groups? How often can we have the focus group? How many people could be in the focus group? We know that we cannot have the ladies and the men in the same thing, so we have to take that into consideration as well.
Run the focus groups.
And it's all the CAB or just us?
It would be ours. We could see if we could get people to volunteer, but we would be the ones going in there doing it. So we would need to know what that looks like and how many people
Yeah.
could be
I
in it.
think CAB as a whole needs to experience the, again, huh? Only to the church.
Well, they may not have the bandwidth and be willing to do it because it falls under us. So we can see.
Mhm. Okay,
You have how many people are on your committee?
There's 3 of
it's
us.
just 3 of us.
Right,
Yeah.
but again, we need to find out what we're looking for and have a
Right.
conversation with Jody.
Okay.
Would you be willing to go if it was okay?
Sure.
Okay.
I've done
Okay.
focus groups when for restorative justice and things of that nature while I was a student at UC Berkeley a couple of years ago. And finding out my reentry population, there was not enough research material for me to actually glean anything from. And fortunately, I was able to connect with some individuals who had just paroled.
Mhm.
A couple of them had done life, and a couple of more of them had actually run programs inside of the institution. I didn't know that when I first started. I just solicited their assistance. So you get a lot of information, and there it's really very, very you get a lot of rich information, and you just have to, for focus groups, it has to be individuals that are really, you know, it's a task, is what I'm just trying to say. It's a task.
Mhm. Okay.
Nicole?
Hello. No, I was just going to add for your tablet, may want to ask her too, if they can, if it is something that can be put on there, can it push out the data that you're looking for? So they may need to know like the type of results, because sometimes the tablets can't put that information out. So not only do they have the bandwidth and understanding how it's going to be contributed, but will it be able to push out the information that you'll need to gather that report at the end? Because I know that it's very, I don't want to say limited, but it's that I think that's a very important question that you asked for that survey. Also, as we all know, all 3 are different, right? So we know West County is its own beast. MDF is not going to happen the way you guys want it to, and Mars Creek is like camp. So that's going to be a whole different ball game in reference to how it's going to be distributed, even when you find your information. So you may have 3 different outlines because each 3 location is completely different. So the other 2 are nothing like West County. MDF, you won't be able to get in and do a focus group because it doesn't run like that. So that's just something to keep in mind. With that data from here, your key point is going to be Jody and what she's going to allow CAP to do and how far she's going to allow CAP to go. That's all I can say about that.
Okay.
Latanya, can I add something real quick before you guys
Yes.
move on? Yeah, I was just
Okay.
gonna say, I know you guys conducted a survey last year, and it's also just really important to keep in mind the data or the information that you're collecting, like what are we going to do with it afterward? So yes, we want to hear from these people that we're serving, but once we hear from them, what is the information? Like, what are we going to do with this information? Like, what is the end goal of our survey?
Correct. So what we're doing is we have the in-custody survey. We also have the survey for the agencies. So the surveys for the agency, we need to determine when it's going to go out. So once we have that information, our next step is to actually go into the agencies to have a conversation, to ask more in-depth questions, and then determine if we need to invite any of them to actually come and present to the full CAB, which is sort of what we did last year. The only difference that we're going to be looking at is when we went, we didn't have set questions set in place to be able to gather the information that we needed to have a better understanding of what they do, to make sure that the service that they're providing is in alignment with the service that those are in custody are asking for and that are needed. Also, if they come to actually present to the full CAB, we're going to have it where we're asking certain information on what we want to be trained on, what we need additional information. Where last year they came and presented, and so they presented what they wanted and not necessarily what we needed. So we're kind of doing the same thing as last year, but adding more information so that it meets the need of where we are and where we're going with this. Questions before we move on?
No, that was good. That gave me some clarity. Yeah, it kind of brought things back for me because I kind of forgot a little bit.
So the next thing on the list, I don't see any hands up, is going to be to discuss and finalize questions for CBO providers, which is on page 7. This is some information that we had reviewed a couple of months ago. So what we did is Nicole and I kind of reviewed it separately. And then we kind of shared the information where a lot of the questions that was previously on here was pulled and will be handled by policy and budget, because a lot of the information went more into depth about finance, how they would utilize the money, and having questions on that aspect of it. These are the questions that were for us, and some of them will overlap. So what we could do is we could go over the questions, see if there's any additional questions that we need to add, and if there's any questions about the ones that we have. Perfect. So at the top, it's talking about program impact and measuring successful outcomes. So the first question is, can you provide data or evidence of the impact your program have had on the formerly incarcerated individually in our community? Any questions, concerns about that? Do we feel like we need to reword it? Are we not clear on what we're asking for? No? Okay. So I don't know if we want to use it exactly that way, or if we want to say, can you provide more detailed information about your agency program and service for individuals in custody and for those transitioning out of custody? I'm not sure if we want to use evidence. Oh.
This sounds good. Maybe.
Michelle has her hand up.
Michelle?
Hi, good morning. I'm just wondering if for question 1, where it says, can you provide data or evidence? Maybe include a little bit more specific words around what type of data? Do you want quantitative and qualitative? I think would be something to include for providers to have clarity of what you're requesting.
And quantity evidence. Michelle?
Yeah, so are you wanting to see some of their numbers based on their reporting, as well as some of their narrative reports that kind of capture the successes of some of their program participants? And maybe a lot of times those narrative reports do also address the challenges like say for staffing. I'm wondering if a question around some of the challenges might be beneficial too. And it might be further down here. Oh, no, I see. I see it down here at the bottom where it says any challenges or risks. So you guys have that.
Just kind of throwing this out there, another piece of that question that could be included, it might be to also kind of insert whether or not they have a platform, a data gathering platform. Some nonprofits or small CBOs or medium size, they have purchased something similar, I guess, to like SAFE, where they,
So is it a platform or a database?
well,
A database?
database.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to know so more about like the database that they're using to
If
capture
they
it?
have one.
Okay,
So kind of like merging that into the question, including the quantitative and qualitative information. And whether or not they do have a resource to capture that database, is what you said.
okay. So we may need to break this down because yeah.
Right. Some kind of way. I just was throwing that out there because some organizations do have means to capture that data, and they probably would be easier for them to get that data instead of just doing a hand count or going through their case management to get report ins. They might have some way that they're actually inputting that data as they go and compiling it as they go.
Okay, so a question that says basically, are you currently using SAFE or another database to capture your information?
Pretty good, but you know, we can kind of play with the verbiage.
Yeah, because most of them use SAFE.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go back. Okay, so can you provide data or quality or quantity evidence on the impact your program have had on formerly incarcerated individuals in our community? Okay. Did you get that? Nicole's, wait, I have, Nicole's your hand, I'm not sure who hand was up first, Nicole's or Michelle.
I think it was Nicole's.
Okay, Nicole?
I just have a quick question for the safe question. So can you provide data? So this is me just overthinking. What would be the measurement from safe used to determine how can I ask this question? Because everyone at entering safe, their measurements are different. So what data from safe will be able to be used as evidence to show impact on somebody? Because majority of the time is used for a referral. So I guess that's a question of how would you guys use that data if given to you?
So
Does that make sense?
prior we said that, yeah, but prior we said that we would do quality and quantity, so they
Okay.
could show and state the number, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So they can
Well,
who?
the quantitative is narratives and numbers is qualitative.
Right, but we said that, she said both. Michelle said both when she
I
gave the
guess a good
example.
question to ask somebody is what is their level of success? Because everyone's measurements are different depending on what their program and what they're funded for. So what may be a measure of success for one program and may not be a measure of success for another. So that goes back to
Okay,
the
so we,
question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
so we want to just reword it to, we focus on the measurement of their success, because that's not the way it was originally written.
No, I was just piggybacking off of something that you were asking a long time ago where you were really trying to get down to. They say they do one thing, but what do they really do, right? So with this question of saying, I mean, we're both familiar with SAFE. So then you'll get people just bombarding you with information, but you really want to know the impact the programs have on the formerly incarcerated. So with us all being familiar with SAFE, I'm saying think about the data that's in there. Everyone's measurement is different. So how would you utilize that data? Because I can easily give you that information and how our measurement success may not be what you're looking for. So I just want to stay true to what you all are asking for. Because we've seen, I don't know if you ladies seen SAFE, I'm familiar with it. So if you're going to use that data, be really clear on what will you be measuring for that level of to determine what the impact on that phone cost. Excuse me, I'm trying to read it. What the evidence, like how are you going to utilize that data? And if you're not familiar with it, I guess maybe want to see that data to see if it's even going to be useful for what you're looking for before you go down a rabbit hole. Because everyone entered information is safe different based on their measurements and their contract.
Okay, so let me go back, because
I'm
originally
sorry.
Michelle has said one thing, and then Ozzy said that we should add the platform database information in there. When you mentioned their platform database, were you looking for anything specific?
If they had it, that would be able to assist in answering that first question. If their database was set up that way. Now I'm hearing that SAFE is not set up, depending on which of the providers it is, it might not be able to glean that information. My thing was if they had a way of capturing that information.
Are you talking about the narrative? What information you want us?
Any of the information that we're asking them.
For the
Can you
evidence?
provide data or evidence of the impact your program has had. So do they have a way of capturing that information to give us information?
So I think if we're asking a question, can you provide? Then we're asking them, are you able to provide us? So at that point, they would tell us if they're able to provide it, and they would say how they're capturing it. I think when we add SAFE, we're telling them we're looking for you to provide it this way versus can you provide?
Right. I only use SAFE. I don't know anything about SAFE. at all, period. And I just know that I've heard that in the rooms that providers do SAFE, and I just threw that out there as an example of a platform. I use platform where you use database. Database is probably more user-friendly because individuals know, well, I'm keeping data and this is where I'm keeping it. And the organizations might be keeping that data on some type of database that they have of how, and maybe they can get that information of how these clients are impacting their programs, what effect this has.
Okay. Nicole, I don't know if we even need to use the word safe, since we're asking a question and we're saying, can you provide data or evidence?
Well, I
don't
mean,
think we need-
you could probably notate if you use, well, I know Michelle Hand is there, if you could probably just notate if you use a safe database, because I know they are able to pull reports from there, but individuals do also use their own internal own tracking too. So I mean, I think to a point, it's a good note to put there because I know that data is used by Origin. I'll let Michelle talk on that a little bit more to capture certain information for the quarterly reports. So it's good to be able to see that data. It's just understanding what data you want from there. And that's a Michelle question on she can answer that. That's her wheelhouse. But I just know it's just making sure if you're going to uplift that, which I think is actually good to uplift because it is something that's used with RJ and our providers that's getting funded. Understand what we're asking for from that system.
Thank you. Michelle?
Hi, lots of good questions that you guys are all asking and considerations. And so I would have to say that because I'm not sure if you guys are specifically going to be having conversations with CBOs that are our current partners, which there's 7, because there's lots of CBOs, but we are currently working with 7. And all 7 of them do input into SAFE, and they also have their own systems as well. But outside of our partners, I don't believe that they have access to inputting that data. So I think that would be the first clarification question is if they're partners, then it's assumed if they're partners with the county probation, then they would be inputting data into SAFE. And those are tied to the input of the data is tied to logic models that is tied to performance-based contracting. So I'm not sure if that information helps clarify a little bit.
Yes.
Okay. And
The
then
people that, yes.
okay. And then the other piece that might be helpful is that what I'm not seeing here, unless if we scroll down a little bit, maybe it is there, but another important piece is finding out about the assessments of what the needs are. Like, because typically like a DPO, for example, typically do them once a year. I understand that GPS does them the risk needs assessment at some point that's prior to release, but that's really helpful information to determine what the risks are, what the needs are, and what the responsivity is. And so because each individual is individual and they have their own needs. So that may be a question to consider to get more understanding. Different programs may have their own, they would have their own assessment. And right now, not all of our contracted service providers have access to the risk needs assessment. That's something that's currently pending right now. But I just wanted to share that might be helpful information.
Okay. That is helpful. I'm trying to figure out how we can reword or ask question 1 to be able to get the information response that we're looking for. Again, the purpose of us meeting with the different agency is to have a better understanding of what they do, to ask questions that are not asked on their surveys or are not going in depth with it, as well as to have a better understanding so that we can identify if there is a gap. And then, as Nicole stated, there has been meetings where we know that some of them do overlap. We know that sometimes they may provide a service, but they may only provide it to maybe the woman or to the males or to to maybe West County and not East County. So that's kind of what this is for us to get the information that we don't have so that we have a better understanding of what we have and what we need. So that's kind of what the questions are for. And so, as Michelle indicated before, I think we do need to go deeper. So that we're asked, so that we're clear about what type of data and evidence we're looking for, and that we know why we're looking for that information. And it's gonna be like a general question because we're gonna all ask, and then each person that goes in will have to go deeper to get more information based off the agency and the service they provide. So is there specific information we're looking for when we say data or evidence? I know that we talked about knowing the narrative. Is there any other information we're looking for that we can ask in a clear question so that the person that is actually meeting with the agency is clear on what they're asking and can communicate it? Okay, so we'll just go with Michelle's original one with quality and quantity, and knowing that we're looking for the narrative. We'll leave that there. We'll look at the rest of the questions, and then we'll see if we need to ask additional questions or phrase the other questions. The next question is, how does your program define success? That is clear. And then how do you measure your success in terms of reducing recidivism, improving employment opportunity, or enhancing community safety? Are you okay with that?
I am.
Okay. Any questions before I go on to number 3? Okay, in what ways can the CAB engage with?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hit the, I'll wait until you guys call me, sorry.
No, go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, so how does, you guys are on, how does your program define success, correct?
Yes.
So I'm wondering for it to be helpful to get a little bit more clearer. When you say your program defines success, are you talking about the overarching program? Or do you mean specifically program interventions? Are you talking about an individual's success? Those are some things that I would think about for clarity of what you're asking that might be helpful.
How does your program define success? How does your program define success? Sure, success in terms of this.
Can I shed some light on that question?
Yeah, because I was going to just put, how does your program define individual success?
Yes, ma'am. Because that's what we were looking for when we were all talking. It was because I know you didn't have to have any input in writing them out. So it goes back to when we were all talking about exactly what you said, individual success, like how I think it's because we want to get to the point of how are they measuring how do they measure individual success? One thing I know that stuck out to us as cabinets, each program is different, right? So each measurement for each program is different. So how do they measure individual success when they work with someone? Because we have, for example, our mentor programs, our employment programs. What is a successful interaction with someone when they actually complete it? Like what measurements do they use? Is it just a handoff? Is it? I think that was one of our. I'm saying the long way around it, but simply said, it's how do they measure their success with an individual?
Okay. Thank you for that. So then going back to question number 1, then I think if we rephrase it so that they know when we're asking for data or evidence that we're looking for them to be able to show us start to finish, an actual person that was in custody, like the complete story. On it. Nicole? Michelle?
I think Nicole was first.
No, Nicole went off camera. That's why I called her. I was going.
I was still
she-
here. Go ahead.
Oh.
I was putting bacon in my mouth. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question?
So I was saying, based off that information, going back to question number 1, do you believe that we should rephrase it to where it's more about them showing data or evidence on a person who was in custody on their, from start to finish, like how they interacted, what they did, and how it was successful?
Yes, I think it's both in and out because that's what we're trying to get to. We just didn't
Right, but
want,
it was,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
so, right, but if it started in like showing the actual timeline process of everything that was done. So John Doe was arrested. This is what we did while the person was incarcerated. This is what we did when they were released. Like we did all these steps, right?
Correct.
Okay.
We really want to know, is it working? Right? Like, wow. Yes, ma'am.
Have had on a individually formally. Okay, hold on. Can you provide it for those you have formally incarcerated individual? Okay. You know what? Now when I go back, it pretty much said that because it said incarcerated individuals in our community. And so when we ask this question, we're looking at the story, the narrative of one person at a time and not a group of people to make sure that it works. Michelle, you had your hand up, I believe.
Yeah, that's a real good distinction because a lot of times the reports that we get are tied to aggregate data, groups of people rather than following the life cycle of one particular individual. And so it's an important distinction that you're making of finding out one individual versus groups of individuals. Either or is obviously helpful information, but determining which avenue you guys are taking. And I think the other really important consideration, especially when we think about person-centered planning, is that individual can also define their own success too.
Yes.
A program might think, well, success is job placement and housing placement. I mean, in many ways that is, but there could be some other things that individual determines to be successful. So if that's information that might derail you from this particular objective, maybe at a future time, finding out a little bit more, because it's hard for a program to arbitrarily or dictate what success is truly for that individual entirely, other than what they can do in terms of job placements, for example, and housing placements. That's like an objective and a goal, but success might be thought about a little bit differently with each person.
Thank you. And I like the word life cycle. The next question is, in what way can the CAB engage with you to learn about your agency progress towards programs outcomes? Any questions, change, rephrase of that question? Okay, we're gonna leave 3 as is. Perfect. Collaboration and partnership. Are you collaborating with other local organizations or agencies to maximize the impact of your program? Any questions? Is it clear?
I have one.
Yes. Michelle?
It seems like this is almost a yes or no, so I'm wondering if what might be considered to be included is, if so, can you explain? Provide examples?
Yeah.
If yes, please provide an example. What did you say before that one, Michelle? You said if yes, can you explain? Did you say?
Oh, yeah, I was just saying this almost can seem like a yes or no question versus if we ask, if there's a little bit more, you know, to elicit more engagement there would be if yes, can you please explain?
Okay. Do you guys want to use the word explain or provide an example?
How about rephrasing it not to be a yes or no question? And just kind of rephrase it to directly ask them to provide the information. Instead of asking them absolute. Just kind of rephrasing it, so they don't have to go and ask that, then explain.
Okay, because we would have to phrase it so that if it's a no, because we're asking, if yes, then please provide an example or explain. Because what if they're not using other agencies?
I think most are. So maybe something like, please share how you are collaborating or something to that effect.
Agencies they're collaborating with.
Okay, so if we said, please share how you're collaborating with other local organizations or agencies to maximize the impact of your program?
Yeah, that's just one idea.
Should it be partnering agencies?
Please share the partners, the stakeholders you're interacting with or partnering with.
Yeah, since we
Because
have.
you're gonna ask them to identify. We're asking them to identify. Correct? You want the names? You asking them for the names?
Yes, like if you're partnering with
Rubicon.
Minimum of Purpose,
Right.
you know, you're using them for their mentors. Overs, they're helping mentor, you know, the participant.
Or you
Or if you're working with Lao, they helped out with the housing.
Right.
Yeah.
Who are you collaborating with and in what capacities?
Yeah. They're supposed to be collaborating, right? They're
Definitely,
supposed to be using our partnering agencies.
right. Absolutely.
Okay, so please share. Because we said, okay, so please share how you, because we said how first. Please share how you are collaborating with other, you wanted to say partner organis. I'm trying to capture everything everybody's saying. So if we start off, please share how you're collaborating with other local organizations or agencies to maximize the impact of your programs.
Please share which. You're asking them which ones you want to know. So you ask.
But if we say which ones, they may just say Rubicon, and they may not say how
And
they
you
utilize
can
this.
also- You can also include the how. It can be a two-part question. Who and how.
So please share who and how, wait.
Please share which of the local organizations and agencies you are utilizing to maximize the impact of your programs.
Okay, so that's the
Services.
That's the who, and then you want us to come back and say how? Because you said who.
Please share.
Because I'm figuring if you ask how, you would have to say which agency, right? or the service.
Mhm.
Okay, how,
I just know, we need to know,
what?
because that's the whole thing of, how we keep saying that.
Are there some
Organizations are
suggestions? Mariah, Bruce has her hand up.
repeating the same services.
Okay. Mariah?
I put a suggestion in the Q&A.
I don't know if it's active.
It just says, can you share which specific local organizations or agencies? I need to reword it. Which specific local organizations or agencies you partner with and how these partnerships optimize the impact of your programs. I don't know if that encapsulates everything.
Did she sound muffled?
Yeah.
Can you say it again?
Can you share which specific local organizations or agencies you partner with and how these partnerships are optimizing the impact of your programs?
Okay. And it's also in the chat.
With some typos, it's in the chat.
Okay. Okay, I like that. Thank you so much. Okay, time. Okay. So the next part we're going to move on to is client and community engagement. How do you involve formerly incarcerated individuals in the community in shaping and evaluating your program? I'm gonna put, and wait, how do you involve formerly incarcerated individual in the community in shaping and evaluating the success of your program?
And community engagement, let's see.
Next question.
Yeah.
How do you involve? And I don't know, how do you involve formerly incarcerated individual?
They're evaluating the program.
Shaping. And that's more about you envision community and shape and evaluate.
It isn't really clear to me.
Nicole, so when I read number 1, is that more about them getting input and feedback on the program?
What section?
Client and community engagement, question
Okay.
1.
How do you involve from incarcerated members of the community in shaping and evaluating your program? So it's that lived experience question. So how do they uplift just an impact individuals within their programs? Like, do they get feedback from them? Like, how do they incorporate them into their programs? Does that make sense?
Okay, how do you involve?
So you know how we always talk about that lived experience by, these programs allowing individuals that are just impacted to also be able to, work and have input in reference to how the program is shaped or be involved within the program. Do they do that? I know some of our programs do, like Minimum to Purpose does. I know Rubicon has at one point. So hopefully I'm explaining it properly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'm trying to think how we can reword it.
How do you involve?
And I think if we use
How about just make
individual
it, go ahead.
How do we involve individual with lived experience? And
Just say,
and
okay, let's
shaping it.
simplify it. Just say, how do you involve formerly incarcerated individuals within your program? We could just simplify it. And we're asking about like just overall, like in the whole overall, like how they're, how are they involved in reference to shaping it? Are they employed? Do they help give feedback? Just overall, some programs don't, some of them do, right? They uplift those that they help and then they give them a chance to be either work there or be part of the structure of it, so we can simplify the question.
Oh, okay, so just asking, how do you involve them in?
Yes. When you think of community, I think of everybody having a voice in it, even if they don't have lived experience.
Mm.
So if we said, how do you involve formerly incarcerated in shaping and evaluating your program?
So I think it
Like if
goes
they have,
back.
they have suggestions or something?
Well, yeah, because
that what-
last year, well, when Dale was here, we were really trying to focus on uplifting the formerly incarcerated individuals within the program and bringing them to CAP. So we really wanted to know, how do they engage with our community partners and the community. I'll use West County as an example, how RC does their events, how they formerly incarcerated individuals they help in shaping that, and some of those events they have there. So how do they incorporate our just and impacted population? And maybe it's the way the question is written. And Michelle, I see you, so maybe you could help me. I'm a wordy person, so simplify it if I'm making sense at all.
Yeah, you are making sense, Nicole. One of the things that I'm just wanting to get clarification on, I heard you say, Nicole, engagement. But what I hear, what I'm reading here is evaluation. That sounds, to me, that sounds like formal language of evaluation of services. And so are you meaning something a little bit more
So
formal, more
so
informal?
it's two-folded. So maybe we need to separate them. So number one, we do want something where we want to understand how they involve the formerly incarcerated. And then the second is, do they take feedback from their participants in reference to evaluating their program? I think that's one part that was missing. We were trying to uplift that from a CAP perspective, or getting feedback from the formerly incarcerated. So maybe, Michelle, what I'm hearing from you, listening to you, maybe it's separating it, maybe it's the way that it's worded and grouped together, it's not formatted properly. Would it make more sense to separate it?
That's up to the body. I'm not
Oh.
so sure about that, but maybe to share some examples of what you're meaning, like employment. Are they employed within the organization? Are there advisory committees to where justice impacted individuals or formerly incarcerated individuals can be part of, like a steering committee? So maybe get a little bit more specific might be helpful. It sounds like you guys want to be a little bit more general, but I'm wondering if getting a little bit more specific might be helpful.
That's a good point, but I'll leave that up to the ladies at the committee.
Yeah. Me too, Nicole, me too.
It's however you want to do it. Let's tell you, I think the question can be broken down by however you ladies agree to break down that question. It was us trying to stay focused to what we were all asking for at CAB, really trying to get down to, the gist of it, of what the programs are doing, and if they are involving our justice formerly incarcerated individuals, and how in depth. But I like the point that Michelle made in reference to kind of like the feedback she gave before, really expanding on that, which we didn't do. So maybe that's something. But however, which way you go with it is fine with me.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna have to, because we talked about people who have lived experience, and then we talked about other things. So I'm trying to figure out, is this for us to get clarity on, I don't know, because this one's confusing me,
Well,
Nicole.
then, remember, if you don't like it, throw it out. It was just suggestions. So
No, I'm trying to get clarity on it.
that's the only way
I'm
I
just
know
trying
how
to,
to explain it. um, that's the only way I can explain it. It's how do you I wrote it's written the best way I can explain it. Sorry if I'm not as clear. It's really, in a nutshell, really understanding how they're involving their formerly incarcerated individuals. I think that community, I'm not sure how else to say the question. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not sure how else to elaborate on it.
If I could just say, for CAP's purposes, these questions make perfect sense. I'm looking at it from the interpretation of a provider's perspective on how it might be interpreted. So that's why I'm just teasing out the words a little bit more. So perhaps you guys might be able to get more meaningful content. Rather than something that's a little bit, maybe might be a little vague in their response.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it. Is this asking, how do you involve the participants and the community in evaluating the program? Like, is it a good program? Is it a bad program? Things you can add to the program, things you can take away from the program, things we need in the program?
Yes, ma'am.
And is it really evaluating or engaging in the program?
Well, initially the question was evaluating, giving feedback, but I like that
Okay.
add-on to it, and I mean, that's a good point you just made as well. But when it was written, it was evaluating.
Did you write that down?
I didn't write anything like that down.
I like how
Okay,
you
so
just said it.
Right, no, but no, that's basically, it sounds like to me, the question is saying,
How,
are the participants and the community able to give you input on your program?
Correct.
Yeah. So are they evaluating the program? You know, evaluating, it sounds pretty, deep though. But
Well, you can
so
find
are
a
they
better
able
word.
to yeah, I'm just saying, are they able to give suggestions or, like what we really need, or can you guys do, or is that what you're still saying? No.
Well,
I
yeah,
wanna make
because
sure I'm right.
remember, yeah, no, you're making sense because remember we all said like, a program could say do one thing, but what is the participant saying, right? And that's what we wanted to narrow
okay.
down to, which is the point of the survey that you all are doing. So thank you for simplifying my mess. Y'all know I'm wordy. I'm sorry. I'm glad
Okay.
y'all learned
So
how to
how do
speak in the code.
participants in community,
See, it's both the community and the participants.
right, I wrote that down.
Oh, okay.
So you
Okay.
said, how do participants in the community
I guess give you feedback on your program.
provide you feedback?
And do they allow the suggestion?
Provide you feedback on your program?
Yeah, or suggestions, or I guess that's what that's saying.
Okay. So basically what we have is how do participants in the community provide you feedback and suggestions on your program? Nicole?
I was trying to clap, but I clicked on request captions by mistake. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, my hands ain't moving fast enough, y'all. I apologize.
No, you're fine. Ooh, we ain't got but like 5 more minutes. Okay. We are not gonna finish, but everyone's okay with that? Okay, do we really need this since we pretty much or do we want to move number 2 to the top? Where we talked about, we would ask that question on the success of the individual and then say, can you provide testimonies or feedback from program participant to illustrate the impact of your service? That seems like that should be up there.
Yeah. I agree.
Yes.
Okay, so we're just gonna move that up to program impact and measure successful outcome. Okay. Under any challenges or risks, what is your organization's strategy for adapting to changing circumstance on unforeseen challenges? I think that's straightforward. I like that one. Michelle?
Thumbs up.
Okay, she's like, you just calling me out. Okay, And then the last question is CAP input. What specific input or feedback would you like to hear from the Community Advisory Board? Um, do you think we need to add something to that so that they're clear on what we're actually input or feedback on their program, on their success, on expanding?
Hmm.
In regards to your programs or services?
Would it be feedback or?
What, they're asking what specific input or feedback would you like to hear from the Community Advisory Board? We want to just leave it open, or do we want to kind of narrow it down?
I don't know. So what would narrowing it down be? What would that look like?
Saying where they could get input feedback instead of just leaving it open. So like in regards to your program, in regards to your service, in regards to, you know, things of that nature. But
The
I,
feedback is just like an opinion, right?
they can, yeah, they're, I mean, feedback could be like what's working, what's not working, what they need, what they like to see more of. It could be the, like their whole, interaction with CAB, what their expectation of us are, if we're meeting their needs, if we're supporting them.
Okay, yeah. But I was wondering, is this saying that, would it be for them to find what asks us, what they need from us? What can we do to help them be successful? Or,
Specific input or feedback would you like to hear from the Community Advisory Board?
they probably don't want to hear nothing, so I'm like.
I guess we can leave it as is. What specific input or feedback would you like to hear from the Community Advisory Board? I just feel like it's missing something, but I can't put my finger on it. Like they may not be clear of what we're asking or where.
I'm not clear.
Okay, Nicole?
So it was really just a general question to see if they wanted some feedback from the advisory board. But I would recommend maybe we could tailor it based on the organization that we're talking about, thinking about our recommendations and things like that. It was just that they want anything, what feedback could be anything. It could be, we can give them feedback about recommendations we heard. We can give them feedback about our surveys we've heard. If it's tying to their programs, like honestly, some of them may do want to hear because we're doing a lot of work and we're talking to a lot of people. So they may want some feedback. Like they may some programs may feel like they're doing their best and don't realize that people may be saying that they need help in this area. Like so somebody may want to know what feedback we have on all the work, because CAB has done a lot of work these past 2 years, more than what has been done previously. So a couple of years ago, I can see nobody wanting to know anything from CAB, but at this moment, they probably would want to have some questions from CAB and want our feedback around some things, especially with the funding and stuff that's on the table right now, to give them input. So it was more originally just a general question of, do they want input from CAB? Because remember, we're doing surveys, not only for CBOs, we're talking to county agencies. So especially from policy and budget standpoint, we have learned a lot about the county human resources department and so on. So they will be smart to ask us questions because we have gathered a lot of data that can actually be helpful to them. So that's why it was a general question. Now, if they ask it, I don't know, but it was more of a maybe forming around, do they have any input or feedback we can provide them based on surveys and data that we've collected in the past year in CAP? Maybe that will draw their attention because a lot of work has been done in 2023 and 2024 that could be beneficial to programs.
I see your hand, Michelle. I'm gonna come right to you. So Nicole, would that be more about like if we got the information, right? Because this is a program, a subcommittee asking the questions. So if they have a question about finances or an area that is outside of us, are we bringing that back to the CAB? And then are we going back with the answer, or where we have them, where we invite them and then they're able to ask their question in person and we answer it?
I guess it would
This is
depend. I guess it would go back to see what responses we get, right? So we really don't know. It depends
okay.
on what kind of response. It's kind of like your survey question based on responses you guys, you ladies will get if they're not pertaining to programs and services, and it's a question outside of that broad. And I was just throwing policy and budget in there in reference to data collected. But if it's not in that wheelhouse, then that's when you ladies will decide, do we want to bring this to full cab? It's not a question that we can answer and kind of figure out what to do with it at that point.
I think we probably should like have an outline, just so that if we're meeting with somebody and they have a finance question, that we can tell them that the process is, like, we'll take this information, we'll provide it to the full body cab, and then whether we'll invite you to the next meeting, whether it'll be an email, phone call, like how would they receive a response?
Okay, we could do that. And then another thing is, I like how you're pointing out, because you are correct. So making sure they understand when you all are asking that question, it's tied to the programs and services, and anything outside of that, like you said, we'll take it back and someone will follow up with you. Could do that
Okay,
too.
okay, perfect. Okay. Michelle?
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are still teasing that one out a little bit more. And again, I was just looking at it from the service provider's question, or perspective on this particular question. And I think yeah, if there's a little bit more details included, I think it would be helpful. But one of the things that I've learned so far that seems to be really meaningful, and I'm not sure if the body would consider this to be a helpful question, but there are a lot of myths out there of, or the tea about what's going on in certain people's experiences. So there could be, obviously people do have their own experiences of what's happening, but there also could be, just like the game telephone, where there's maybe some misunderstandings about how services are, not available, but the truth and the facts is that they are available. So I'm not sure if that would be helpful at all, but what I've learned so far and what I've observed is when I hear a program say, actually, we really do provide this and we provide it based on XYZ. So I'm not sure if that's something that that this body would find helpful, but kind of like teasing out facts from fiction and truths from untruths of how certain things may be done based on a couple of people's experience, but it might not have been the majority of people's experiences. Just something that I wanted to share as a thought. Thank you.
Okay, we're right at 12:30. So we're gonna, the next steps are going to be, Ariana, do you want me to reach out to Jody directly, or would you do that in regards to the questions we had for the tablet, the focus group?
It's up to you, Latanya, however you want to do the next steps. ORJ can support the body in any way, shape, or form. You just have to let us know what you want us to do.
Can we work on together on that to get that email out, communication to Jody?
Yes.
Okay. Were you able to capture all of the corrections, comments we made on those CBO questions?
Correct. Yes.
So the next thing would be for us just to finalize it at the next meeting. And then the next step would be that once we have it finalized, hopefully at the next meeting, we will identify which people on the committee will reach out to which agencies with the question to start setting up their appointments.
Sounds good.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure we have everything. Yep, those are our next couple of steps. Are there any other comments, announcements? If not, this would adjourn our meeting, and the next one will be on April 18th, 2024 at 11 a.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.